How did one act of kindness turn into your biggest regret? I never thought one simple act of kindness could destroy my life. But it did. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and I'm left alone with my thoughts, I wonder if I should have just walked away that night. It was raining hard, the kind of storm that makes the whole street glow with reflections from passing headlights. I was leaving the grocery store when I saw her soap through, shivering, trying to cover herself with a ripped trash bag like it was a coat. She couldn't have been more than 19, maybe 20, with hair plastered to her cheeks and eyes wide like a frightened animal. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked, stopping under the awning. She hesitated, then shook her head quickly. "I'm fine. I just need to get home." Her voice cracked on the word home, like she wasn't sure she had one. And that's when I made the choice. The choice that still haunts me. "Come on," I said, unlocking my car. "I'll give you a ride." Her name was Lila. She told me that halfway through the drive, her voice small and wary, like she was testing me with each word. She said she'd been staying with a boyfriend, that things had gone bad, so bad she had to run. She had no money, no family nearby, just a few clothes stuffed into a torn plastic bag and a phone with a cracked screen. I should have dropped her off at the nearest shelter. Should have wished her well and gone home. But something in me, a mix of pity and stubborn hope, wanted to help. "You can crash at my place tonight," I told her. "Just until you figure things out." She looked at me like I'd just handed her a lifeline. And maybe I had. That first night was harmless enough. I made her tea, gave her a blanket, and let her sleep on the couch. She thanked me at least a dozen times before finally drifting off. I remember standing there in the doorway, watching her breathe, thinking I'd done a good thing. A decent thing. I had no idea I'd just invited a storm into my life that would tear everything apart. By the third night, she was still there. I didn't have the heart to push her out. She was polite, almost painfully so, washing dishes, folding laundry, asking if she could help with groceries. She smiled shyly whenever our eyes met, and for the first time in years I felt noticed, seen. And then one night, after dinner, she told me something that shifted the air between us. "My boyfriend, he wasn't just bad," she whispered, eyes fixed on her mug of tea. "He was dangerous. He told me if I ever left, he'd make sure I regretted it." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Does he know you're here?" She shook her head. "I don't think so. But if he finds me?" Her voice trailed off. She didn't have to finish the sentence. I should have been scared for myself, but all I felt was this fierce, protective urge. I told her she was safe here, that nobody was going to hurt her again. She gave me this fragile smile, and for a second I believed it. That was the beginning of the end. A week later, I came home from work and found her in my kitchen, cooking dinner. She wore one of my shirts, sleeves rolled up past her elbows, humming to herself like she belonged there. And I swear, in that moment, something shifted inside me. "You didn't have to do this," I said, though the smell of garlic and onions made my stomach growl. "I wanted to," she replied softly. Then she really looked at me and said, "You're the first person who's been kind to me in years." Her words lodged somewhere deep inside me. And that's when the line blurred. The line I should have kept clear. That night, after dinner, we sat on the couch watching some dumb sitcom. She leaned against me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. My arm hovered for a moment before settling around her. She didn't pull away. It felt good. Too good. But good things don't last. They never do. 2 nights later, there was a pounding on my door so violent it rattled the frame. I jumped up, heart racing, and Lila froze, eyes wide with terror. "Don't," she whispered, gripping my arm. "Please don't answer." The pounding grew louder, angrier, like whoever was out there wasn't leaving without a fight. And then, through the storm of fists, I heard it. A man's voice, low and venomous. "Lala, I know you're in there. Open the damn door." My blood ran cold. That was the moment I realized my act of kindness hadn't saved Lila. It had dragged me into her nightmare, and there was no way out. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to stay quiet, to pretend no one was home. But Lila's grip on my arm was trembling so hard I could feel her fear vibrating through my bones. The man outside pounded again. "Don't make me break this door down." I looked at her. "Is that him?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, eyes glistening. She nodded. My stomach dropped. I whispered, "Go to the bedroom. Lock the door. Now." She hesitated. But when the pounding turned into a kick that rattled the hinges, she bolted. I stood there, staring at the door, my heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. I wasn't built for confrontation. Never had been. But something about the way her voice had cracked earlier, "He's dangerous," made me plant my feet instead of running. I gripped the doorknob, pulled it open an inch. And that's when I saw him. He was taller than me by a head, broad-shouldered, wearing a leather jacket soaked from the rain. His eyes were sharp, darting past me like I was just an obstacle. He didn't smile. "Where is she?" His voice was steady, controlled, too controlled. "She's not here." My voice cracked on the last word, betraying me. His lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. Wrong answer. He pushed at the door hard and I stumbled back. Suddenly he was inside, dripping rainwater on my floor like he owned the place. "I don't want trouble," I stammered, blocking the hallway that led to my room. "Just leave." He looked me up and down, almost amused. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him I didn't care. But my throat was dry. "I don't care who you are. You're not taking her." He chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "You think this is your fight? You don't even know her." He leaned in, close enough that I could smell the sharp tang of whiskey on his breath. "She didn't tell you, did she?" "Tell me what?" The silence that followed was worse than his threats. His eyes burned into mine, calculating. Then suddenly he leaned back, smirk widening. "You'll find out soon enough." Before I could react, he shoved past me. I lunged to stop him, but he was too fast. He kicked the bedroom door once hard and it flew open. "Lila," he shouted. Her scream tore through the house, piercing, desperate. I ran after him, adrenaline finally kicking in. The scene in the bedroom froze me in place for a split second. Lila pressed against the wall, eyes wild while he loomed over her, gripping her wrist so tight her knuckles turned white. "Let her go." My voice was louder this time, angrier. He turned his head slowly toward me, his grip never loosening. "What are you gonna do about it?" Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was weeks of watching her shrink into herself. Maybe it was the sheer arrogance in his voice. I didn't think I just charged. We collided hard. The two of us crashed into the dresser, sending a lamp shattering to the floor. His fist came fast, catching me across the jaw. Pain exploded, stars bursting in my vision, but I didn't let go. I swung back, clumsy, desperate. Lila was crying, begging us to stop, but the sound only fueled the chaos. Then, in the middle of the struggle, he said something that cut through the noise. "You don't know who she really is." For a moment I faltered, and in that split second, he shoved me off, hard enough that I stumbled against the wall. He grabbed her face roughly, forcing her to look at him. "Tell him, Lila. Tell him what you did." Her entire body froze. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. "Tell him." His voice was a roar now, raw and furious. I stood there, panting, blood in my mouth, staring at her. She looked at me then, not at him, but at me with eyes so full of terror and shame that my stomach twisted. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. Because what if he wasn't lying? What if I didn't really know who I'd let into my home? Her silence was unbearable. The man's grip on her face tightened, forcing her to meet my eyes while his voice cut through the room like a blade. Go on. Tell your new savior the truth. I swallowed hard, adrenaline still coursing through me. Layla, what is he talking about? Her lips parted, but only a shaky breath escaped. The man sneered. Pathetic. You run, you cry, you play the victim, but you forget people know what you've done. He let go of her with a shove that sent her stumbling onto the bed. I moved to step between them, but my mind was buzzing. I wanted to protect her. Yes, but a splinter of doubt had just lodged itself deep inside me. What did she do? I demanded. My voice was rough, louder than I intended. He tilted his head at me, studying me like I was some naive kid who'd wandered into the wrong alley. Then he leaned in, his whisper meant to cut deep. She ruined someone's life, and now she's about to ruin yours. Before I could respond, he straightened and walked toward the door. Just like that, as if the fight was over. I blinked, stunned. That's it. You barge in, throw punches, and leave. He stopped in the doorway, turning just enough for me to see the glint in his eye. I don't need to stay. She do the rest. Just wait. Then he was gone. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house like a gunshot. The silence afterward was deafening. I turned back to Lila. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, trembling, her hair hanging like a curtain over her face. Leela, I said softly. My voice cracked despite my best effort. What did he mean? She shook her head violently. He's lying. He always lies. That didn't sound like a lie. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing. You believe him over me? I hesitated. Too long. And she saw it. Her expression collapsed, hurt flooding her features. I knew it, she whispered. I knew the moment he showed up, you'd look at me different. My jaw ached where he'd hit me. My heart pounded with leftover fear and anger. But beneath all of that was confusion. Then tell me the truth, I said firmly. All of it. No more pieces, no more secrets. Because if I'm risking myself for you, I need to know what I'm actually protecting you from. For a moment, she just sat there, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. Then she finally whispered, I didn't just leave him. I left everything. And if he finds me, I'm not the only one who's going to get hurt. Her words sent a chill down my spine. What does that mean? She hugged herself tightly, rocking slightly like she was trying to keep from unraveling. I can't tell you yet. If I say it out loud, it makes it real. Lila, I crouched in front of her, forcing her to meet my eyes. You already brought it here. Whatever it is, it's already real. Her lips quivered, but she didn't answer. Instead, she whispered so softly I almost didn't hear it. You'll hate me when you know. I exhaled sharply, frustration mixing with dread. I don't care about hating you. I care about surviving this. But she just shook her head again and again, as if the words themselves were a trap. That night, neither of us slept. I sat in the living room with the baseball bat I kept by the door, staring at the shadows stretching across the walls. Every creak of the house made me tense. Lila stayed locked in the bedroom, the muffled sound of her sobs bleeding through the door. By morning, my nerves were shot. I poured coffee with trembling hands, eyes burning from lack of sleep, and that's when I noticed an envelope slid halfway under the front door. No knock, no footsteps, just there. I picked it up carefully, my chest tightening as I unfolded it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, one sentence, written in thick black marker. Ask her about the fire. My hands went cold. Fire? I looked toward the bedroom door, where Lila was still hiding. What the hell had I gotten myself into? The word burned into my brain. Fire. I stared at the page like it might change if I blinked enough times. But it didn't. Just those 4 letters, bold and final. My chest tightened. I carried the note to the kitchen table, laid it flat, and sat down hard. My pulse thudded in my ears. What fire? I thought about the man's words last night. She ruined someone's life. The pieces didn't fit, but they were sharp enough to cut me anyway. The bedroom door creaked open behind me. Lila stepped out, wrapped in one of my hoodies. Her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw the note, her whole body froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I slid the paper across the table toward her. What does this mean? She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the words like they were a ghost crawling off the page. Lila, I said, my voice rough. You need to tell me, now. Her breathing quickened. She reached for the note, then yanked her hand back like it had burned her. Finally, in a whisper so thin I barely caught it, she said, They know. My stomach dropped. Who knows? All of them. She backed away, pressing against the counter, her hands gripping the edge like she needed something solid to keep her upright. I told you. If I say it out loud, it makes it real. I stood, my patience unraveling. Lila, it's already real. You brought it to my house. Someone slipped this under my door. You don't get to keep me in the dark anymore. Her eyes darted to me, desperate, pleading. Please, just trust me a little longer. Please. But the longer she asked me to trust her, the less I could. That day crawled by like a bad dream. I tried to go about my routine, but every sound set me on edge. Lila barely spoke, drifting from room to room like a ghost. Every time I tried to press her, she shut down. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys. I'm going out, I muttered. She jumped to her feet, eyes wide. Where? Just out. I need air. Her voice cracked. Don't leave me here alone. I stopped. My hand tightened on the doorknob, and that's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The lock. The screws around it had fresh scratches, like someone had tried to force it open. My throat went dry. I turned slowly back to her. Has anyone been here today? She shook her head violently. No. I swear, but I wasn't sure I believed her anymore. That night, I slept in a chair by the front door with the bat across my lap. Or tried to. My eyes kept flicking toward the shadows in the corners, waiting for them to move. Lila didn't go back to the bedroom. She curled up on the couch, knees to her chest, staring blankly at nothing. At 3 a.m., I woke to a sound. A faint crackling. For a split second, I thought it was the rain again. But then I smelled it. Smoke. I shot to my feet, heart slamming against my ribs. Lila, I hissed. She jerked awake, her eyes wild. Something's burning. We both ran to the kitchen. And there it was, the curtains above the sink. Flames licking their way upward. Smoke pouring into the room. My mind blanked. Training from a long-ago fire drill kicked in. I grabbed the extinguisher under the sink, yanked the pin, and blasted white foam across the blaze until the flames choked out. The whole room reeked of smoke and chemical residue. My hands shook as I set the extinguisher down. Then I saw it, a crumpled rag, soaked in gasoline, lying in the corner by the back door. Someone had started this fire on purpose, and they'd been inside my house to do it. My skin crawled. I looked at Lila. Her face had gone sheet white. She whispered something I barely caught. It's happening again. Her words sent a chill straight through me. Again? I demanded. She covered her face with her hands. I told you the truth would destroy everything. And in that moment, standing in the smoke-filled kitchen, I realized something horrifying. The fire wasn't a warning. It was a message. And Lila wasn't telling me everything. The smell of smoke clung to everything. My clothes, the walls, even my skin. No matter how many windows I opened, the house felt poisoned. I scrub it at the counter with shaking hands, trying to erase the black streaks left behind. But no amount of cleaning could erase what that rag in the corner meant. Someone had been inside. I turned to Lila. She sat at the table, motionless, staring at her hands like they didn't belong to her. "You need to tell me what the hell is going on," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and rage. Her eyes lifted slowly to mine. They were empty, hollow, like she'd already accepted something I hadn't. "It won't matter if I do. They'll make sure you hate me anyway." "Stop speaking in riddles," my voice cracked. "I nearly died in my own kitchen tonight. We nearly died. And you're sitting there like this is just another day." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't move. Didn't flinch. She whispered, "Because for me, it is." That silence between us stretched into something unbearable. Finally, I snapped. "What fire, Lila? Tell me what they're talking about." Her lips parted, but the sound of tires crunching on wet gravel outside cut her off. We both froze. Headlights swept across the front window. A car idled in my driveway, engine low and steady. My breath hitched. I grabbed the bat from beside the door and peeked through the curtain. A black sedan, windows tinted too dark to see inside. Just sitting there, humming like a predator waiting to pounce. "Is it him?" I whispered. Lila didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her trembling told me enough. For 5 agonizing minutes, the car stayed put. The engine finally cut, and the headlights died. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. And then silence. "Stay here," I muttered, though my voice shook. I crept toward the door, bat in hand, straining to hear anything. Footsteps. Breathing. A shadow. But there was nothing. When I finally pulled the curtain back again, the driveway was empty. The car was gone, like it had never been there. I turned back to Lila. She hadn't moved. Her hands were still clenched in her lap, knuckles white. "I can't keep doing this," I said, my voice breaking. "Not without answers. You owe me that much." Her head dropped, her hair falling like a curtain over her face. She whispered, "It wasn't an accident." My stomach twisted. What wasn't? The fire. She looked up, her eyes wide and raw. The one before. The one they're talking about. It wasn't an accident. Cold crept into my chest. You started it. Her silence was louder than a confession. I staggered back, gripping the bat tighter. "Jesus, Lila." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't. But it killed someone." The room tilted. I had to grab the back of a chair to steady myself. "You killed someone?" Her whole body shook now. She wrapped her arms around herself, sobbing so hard her words came out in fragments. "I didn't. He was supposed to. He wasn't supposed to be there." My head spun. The air felt too thin. The gas-soaked rag, the man's warning, the envelope. It all made sense now. I'd let a killer into my home, and she wasn't done running. I opened my mouth to speak, but the sound of shattering glass from the back of the house cut me off. Layla's head snapped toward it, eyes wide with terror. Someone was inside. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the house like a gunshot. I froze, bat clenched in my sweaty hands. "Stay here," I whispered to Lila, but she was already shaking her head violently, her eyes wide. No, you don't understand. If it's him, then all the more reason you need to stay put." I moved toward the hallway, my bare feet careful on the hardwood, every creak of the floorboards sounding like thunder in my ears. My chest tightened with every step. I wanted to believe it was just the wind, a tree branch, anything but what we both knew it was. The kitchen was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight outside, and there scattered across the floor were shards of glass from the back window. The night air poured in, cold and sharp. "Hello?" My voice cracked despite the absurdity of calling out. Silence. I raised the bat, inching closer. Then I heard it. A floorboard groaning. Not under me. From deeper inside the house. My blood went cold. I spun toward the sound, every nerve on fire. My grip tightened on the bat until my knuckles ached. My breathing was loud, ragged, betraying me in the suffocating silence. Behind me, Lila's voice trembled. Don't. Too late. A shadow moved in the hallway. Slow. Deliberate. Who's there? I demanded, though my voice broke halfway through. And then he stepped forward. The man from before. The leather jacket. The eyes that burned. His lip was split now. His jaw bruised where I'd hit him. But the smirk was still there. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said calmly, as if we were negotiating instead of standing in my dark kitchen with shattered glass at our feet. Get out of my house. My voice was horse-thin. He tilted his head, amused. Your house? That's funny, because everything in here screams hers. I felt Lila step up behind me, trembling so hard I could feel it radiating off her. Stay back, I hissed, but she didn't move. The man's gaze slid past me, locking onto her. There you are. His voice softened, almost tender. You really thought you could run forever. Her voice broke. Please, just stop. Tell him. The man snarled suddenly, his tenderness gone. He jabbed a finger in my direction. Tell him what you did. Or should I? I looked at her. She was shaking her head, whispering, no. No under her breath like a prayer. Tell me what? I demanded. My chest felt tight, the weight of every unanswered question pressing in. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. She burned him alive. The words hit me like a hammer. I turned to Lila, searching her face for denial, for anger, for anything that proved it wasn't true. But all I saw was devastation. Her knees buckled and she sank to the floor, sobbing. My stomach lurched. My hand loosened on the bat. Oh my God. The man stepped closer. She killed my brother. That fire, everyone called it an accident. But it wasn't. And now you're protecting her. My head spun. The room tilted. The smoke from last night still clung to my memory. And now his words painted it in blood. Leela's sobs turned to choked gasps. I didn't know he was inside, she cried. I swear I didn't know. The man's eyes blazed. Liar. You lunged. I barely had time to raise the bat before he slammed into me, knocking me back into the counter. Pain shot up my spine. The bat clattered to the floor, spinning out of reach. Leela screamed. The man's hands closed around my throat, squeezing, crushing. My vision blurred, black creeping in at the edges. I clawed at his arms, gasping, choking, desperate. And then just when I thought I was gone, he jerked backward, howling in pain. Lila stood behind him, clutching a shattered glass bottle, blood dripping down his neck where she'd struck. Run! She screamed. I didn't think. I just grabbed her hand, yanked her toward the front door, and stumbled into the night. The cold air hit my burning lungs like fire. Behind us, I heard him cursing, crashing into furniture as he tried to follow. We tore down the street barefoot, half blind, running for our lives. But even as we fled, one thought hammered in my skull, louder than my own heartbeat. She hadn't denied it. She had killed someone, and now I was next in line. We ran until my legs burned and my chest felt like it was splitting open. The street lamps blurred past, the pavement biting into my bare feet. Every shadow looking like him ready to lunge. Finally, I yanked Lila into a side alley and pressed us against the wall, gasping for air. My whole body shook, my throat still raw where his hands had closed around it. She was trembling too, her breath sharp and uneven. We have to keep moving, she stammered. No, my voice cracked hoarse. Not another step until you tell me the truth. Her eyes glistened in the dim light. She shook her head, desperate. This isn't the time. It's the only time. My voice came out louder than I intended, but I didn't care. That man says you killed his brother, and you didn't deny it. You just cried. So I need to know, Lila. Did you do it? Her whole body sagged, like the fight had drained out of her. She slid down the wall until she was crouched in the dirt, arms wrapped around herself. Yes, she whispered. The words sliced through me like a blade. My breath caught. I staggered back a step, gripping my knees like I'd been punched. Oh my God. Her voice cracked. But it wasn't what you think. Then tell me what the hell it was. Tears streaked down her cheeks. Her words came in broken gasps. He was hurting me. Worse than you know. I tried to leave. And You locked me in. I lit the fire just to scare him, just to make him let me go. But he didn't come out. I pressed my hands to my head, my thoughts spiraling. So you killed him. Her sobs turned violent, shaking her whole frame. I didn't know he was still inside. I thought he'd follow me out. I thought he'd chase me. But he didn't. He burned. The silence that followed was suffocating. Only the distant hum of traffic reached us. You should have gone to the police, I muttered finally. They wouldn't have believed me. Her voice was small, broken. They never do. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But deep down, some part of me knew she was right. I'd seen that look in her eyes when she first told me he was dangerous. I'd seen her flinch at shadows, cry at sudden noises. Something awful had happened to her long before I found her in the rain. But still, a man was dead, and his brother, the man who'd just tried to kill me, wasn't going to stop until he evened the score. I crouched down, forcing her to look at me. We can't go back. Not to my house. Not anywhere he knows. Do you understand? She nodded weakly, wiping her face with the sleeve of my hoodie. We need help, I said. Real help. As I said it, I realized how hopeless that sounded. Police? They'd see a girl who admitted to arson and manslaughter. Friends? I didn't have anyone I could call without dragging them into this nightmare. We were on our own. I led her through back streets until we found an old 24-hour laundromat. The hum of dryers filled the air, masking the sound of our ragged breathing. We sank into hard plastic chairs, side by side but miles apart. I rubbed my throat, the bruises already blooming under my skin. He's not going to stop. You know that, right? Her eyes flicked to mine, hollow and haunted. I know. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Then we have to stop him first. Her head snapped toward me, shock flashing across her face. You mean, I mean whatever it takes. My voice came out flat, almost unrecognizable to myself. Because if we don't, one of us won't survive the next time he finds us. She stared at me, tears welling again, but this time there was something else in her expression. Not just fear. Something darker, resolve, and that scared me more than anything. The laundromat door creaked open behind us. My blood went cold. Slow footsteps echoed across the linoleum. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. He'd found us. The sound of his boots against the linoleum floor was deliberate. Slow. Each step echoing like a countdown. I stood immediately, heart pounding, grabbing the nearest thing I could, a heavy folding chair. My palms were slick with sweat, but I raised it anyway, ready to swing. Leela's breath hitched beside me. Please, she whispered, her voice raw. He emerged from the shadows of the doorway, his face twisted in fury and something worse, satisfaction. The gash on his neck from the broken bottle was wrapped in a crude bandage, but the blood had seeped through. His eyes locked on Lila, like she was the only thing in the room. You thought you could run to some stranger and hide. His voice dripped venom. You thought I wouldn't find you. My grip tightened on the chair. Get out. He laughed, low and dangerous. This isn't about you. You're just collateral. Step aside, and maybe I'll let you walk away. I shook my head. My throat still ached from his hands, but I forced the words out. Not happening. His gaze snapped to me then, sharp and deadly. You don't even know what she did. You think she's some broken little girl. No, she's a killer. Lila was trembling so hard I thought she might collapse. I didn't mean to, she whispered, tears spilling down her face. I didn't mean for him to die. His face twisted, rage boiling over. You left my brother to burn. His voice thundered through the laundromat, making the walls vibrate. You listened to him scream while the fire took him. Lila sobbed, covering her ears like she could block out his words. And in that moment I understood. It didn't matter what she said, what explanation she gave. This man wasn't here for truth. He was here for revenge. You lunged. I swung the chair with every ounce of strength I had. It crashed against his shoulder, the impact jarring through my arms. He stumbled but didn't go down. His fist came fast, slamming into my gut, knocking the air out of me. I doubled over, gasping, but managed to stay on my feet. Run, Lila. I choked out. She didn't move. She just stood there, frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. The man advanced again, knife glinting in his hand now, pulled from his jacket. My blood ran cold. I grabbed a metal laundry cart and shoved it into him, sending him sprawling into a row of washers with a crash. The knife clattered to the floor, skidding across the tiles. Layla, I shouted. The knife get it, but she didn't. She just stared at it, paralyzed, shaking her head over and over. The man roared, pushing the cart off and charging again. We slammed into a dryer, metal rattling, fists flying. His rage gave him strength, but desperation gave me something too. I clawed, swung, bit anything to stay alive. My hands found his injured neck, pressing down hard. He screamed, thrashing, blood soaking through the bandage again. Lila screamed too, her voice piercing. Stop, please stop. I don't know if she was yelling at him or me. We crashed to the floor, both of us gasping, fighting for leverage. My hand brushed against something cold. The knife. I grabbed it, my chest heaving, and raised it high. The man froze, eyes locking on the blade, chest heaving with ragged breaths. His smirk was gone, replaced with something else fear. But then I felt it. A hand on my arm. Leela. Her eyes were wide, pleading, shimmering with tears. Don't, she whispered. If you do this, you'll never come back from it. The knife trembled in my hand. My vision blurred with sweat, blood, and fury. And in that moment I realized the truth. She wasn't just afraid of him. She was afraid of me. The knife shook in my hand, the blade hovering inches above his chest. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out everything but the sound of my own ragged breath. One thrust. That's all it would take. One motion to end this nightmare. His lips twisted into a cruel grin, even pinned beneath me. Do it. Go on. Then you'll be just like her. The words hit like acid. My hand trembled harder. Leela's grip on my arm tightened. Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. Please don't. You're not him. You're not me. Don't become what we're running from. Her eyes, God, her eyes were wide and wet, pleading, terrified not of what it might do. For a second I saw it. Saw myself in the reflection of that blade. Jaw clenched, eyes wild, hand poised to kill. A stranger. I dropped the knife. It clattered against the tile, the sound echoing through the laundromat like a gunshot. My arms felt suddenly heavy, my body trembling with exhaustion. The man took his chance. He shoved me off with a violent twist, scrambling to his feet. Blood streamed down his neck, his chest heaving. He kicked the knife away, sending it skidding under a washer. "You don't have it in you," he spat, his voice dripping with contempt. "But she does. And she already proved it." He lunged at Leela. I reacted on instinct. My hand closed around the broken bottle she'd used earlier, still sticky with his blood. I swung it wide, slashing across his arm. He howled, staggering back, clutching the fresh wound. For a moment, the three of us just stood there panting, bleeding, shaking. Lila's voice broke the silence. "Why are you doing this?" His head snapped toward her, eyes blazing. "Because he was my brother, my only family, and you left him to die screaming." Her sobs echoed against the whirring dryers. "I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't mean to." "Lies," he roared. His voice cracked with rage, but underneath I heard something else. Grief. Pure, bottomless grief. And for the first time, I saw him not just as a monster, but as a man broken by loss. But grief doesn't excuse murder. He lunged again, and this time I was ready. I caught him around the waist, driving us both into the row of dryers. The metal banged like a drum, reverberating through the empty space. We collapsed to the floor, tangled in fists and blood. My vision blurred. My body screamed with pain. I didn't know how much longer I could fight. Then sirens. The wail grew louder, closer, cutting through the chaos. Red and blue lights flickered across the laundromat windows. He froze. His eyes darted toward the sound, wild and frantic. For the first time, I saw fear in him that had nothing to do with me. "Not like this," he muttered. And then he bolted. He sprinted out the back door, crashing into the night just as the front doors burst open, and 2 officers stormed in, guns drawn. "Hands where we can see them." I raised my trembling hands, blood dripping down my arm, my throat raw. Beside me, Lila sobbed, collapsing against the plastic chairs. The officers rushed forward, shouting questions, pulling me to my feet. My body moved on autopilot, too drained to fight, too broken to explain. But through it all, one thought cut sharper than any knife. The man might have been gone, but he wasn't finished, and neither was Lila's past. The sirens faded into the distance, but their echo stayed with me long after the cruisers pulled away. We sat in the back of the ambulance, the sharp stink of antiseptic mixing with the coppery tang of blood. A paramedic shined a light in my eyes, muttering about concussion symptoms, but I barely heard him. My mind was a whirlpool, spinning around the same 2 words. "She killed." Layla sat beside me, wrapped in a blanket. Her face was pale, streaked with dry tears, her hands trembling in her lap. She didn't look at me. Not once. The police had taken our statements separately. I told them the truth, or at least my version of it. That a man had broken in, attacked us, and fled when the sirens came. I left out the part about Lila's confession, about the fire. I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. Not yet. One of the officers approached, notebook in hand. His tone was calm, almost rehearsed. "We'll put a patrol car on your street for a few nights. But until we catch him, I suggest you find somewhere else to stay." I nodded numbly. "What about him? You'll find him, right?" The officer's expression tightened. "We'll try. But men like him, they don't just disappear. He'll surface again." That was supposed to reassure me. It didn't. When they finally let us leave, I drove without thinking. The streets blurred past, neon signs smearing in the rain. Lila sat silently in the passenger seat, clutching the blanket like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Every so often I glanced at her, and each time, the same thought crept in. She killed someone, and now I was part of her cover. We ended up at a cheap roadside motel, the kind with buzzing neon and cigarette burns in the sheets. I paid cash, my hands still shaking as I slid the bills across the counter. Inside the room, Lila finally spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You hate me now, don't you?" I set my bag down, my throat tightening. "I don't hate you." Her eyes flicked to me, searching, desperate. "Then what?" I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my temples. "I don't know. I don't even know what to feel." She sank into the chair in the corner, curling up small. "I told you. You'd hate me if you knew." The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning in me since the laundromat. "Why did you come to me, Lila? That night in the rain? Out of everyone, why me?" Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Because you looked kind." The words hit me harder than any punch her pursuer had thrown. Kind. That was all it had taken to drag me into this nightmare. One act of kindness. I stood pacing the small room. My chest ached with the weight of it all. "Do you realize what you've done? Not just to me, but to yourself. To him." She flinched. "I know. I live with it every second. Every time I close my eyes, I see the flames. I hear him screaming." Her voice cracked raw. "I don't need you to remind me." I stopped pacing, staring at her. For the first time, I saw not just guilt, but shame. Crushing, relentless shame. And yet, some part of me still didn't know if it was real. If she was broken by what she'd done, or if she was just good at surviving. I collapsed back onto the bed, burying my face in my hands. We sat in silence for a long time. The hum of the motel's old air conditioner the only sound. Then, around midnight, I heard it. A car engine. Slow. Idling outside. I went to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to see. A black sedan, parked across the street. No headlights. He'd found us again. The black sedan sat across the street, engine humming low, like a beast crouched in the dark. I let the curtain fall back into place, my pulse pounding in my ears. My throat was dry, but my voice came out steady. "He's here." Lila stiffened in the chair. Her fingers dug into the fabric of the blanket until her knuckles went white. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, he can't be." "Not again." I swallowed hard. "It's him." She stood slowly, like her legs could barely hold her. "We have to leave." I shook my head. "We can't keep running. You saw it, he'll find us wherever we go." "He always does." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then what do we do?" I opened the knitstand drawer. My stomach dropped. No Gideon Bible this time, just a revolver. Old scratched but loaded. The motel's secret for weary travelers who paid cash and didn't ask questions. I picked it up, the cold weight settling into my hand. "We end this." Leela's face drained of color. "No. Please, no." "What choice do we have?" My voice cracked under the weight of it. "He's not going to stop until one of us is dead. You know that." She hugged herself, shaking violently. "If you kill him, you'll never come back from it. You'll be like me." I stared at her, the revolver heavy in my hand. "Maybe that's what it takes." The car outside idled for another 5 minutes. Then the engine cut. Silence. I crept back to the window. The driver's door opened. A shadow stepped out. Broad shoulders. The unmistakable gait. He started toward the motel. "Stay here," I told Lila, but she grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You can't face him alone. Please. He'll kill you." Her eyes were wide, shimmering with terror. And maybe something else. A plea not just for me, but for herself. Because if I died, she'd be alone with him again. The footsteps grew louder, crunching gravel, then creaking up the wooden steps outside. A knock rattled the door. Slow. Heavy. I raised the revolver, my hands trembling. Open up, his voice growled. Let's finish this. I glanced at Layla. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Another knock, louder. I'm not leaving until one of you is gone. The knob rattled violently. Then the door shook under his weight as he slammed his shoulder against it. Leela screamed. The frame splintered. Once. Twice. On the third hit, the lock burst. The door swung open. He stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild, knife glinting in his hand. And I had 1 second to decide. Pull the trigger or let him in. Time slowed. His silhouette filled the doorway, knife glinting under the flickering motel light. My finger hovered on the trigger, sweat dripping down my face, heart slamming so loud it drowned out everything else. He stepped forward, eyes locked on Lila. I aimed, my breath caught, and then her voice cut through the haze. Stop! Both of us froze. Her body trembled, but her voice carried a strength I hadn't heard before. This ends now. Not with him. With me. My stomach dropped. Leela. She turned to me, tears streaking her face. Put the gun down. No! I shouted. He'll kill us. Her gaze locked on mine, fierce and unyielding. He wants me. Not you. And I'm done running. I have to own what I did. The man's breath was ragged, his chest heaving with rage. Damn right you do. Leela took a shaky step forward. I didn't mean to kill your brother. I wanted to scare him. I wanted to escape. But I did it. And I've lived with it every second since. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. If you need revenge, take it out on me. Not him. She dropped to her knees, arms open, sobbing. Do it. Finish it. The knife trembled in his hand. His face twisted, torn between fury and grief. He raised the blade, then hesitated, his jaw clenched, veins bulging in his neck. He was ready to strike. My body moved before my mind caught up. The gun went off. The sound was deafening, shaking the flimsy walls. He staggered backward, eyes wide with shock, before crumpling onto the motel carpet. The knife slipped from his hand. Silence. Just the ringing in my ears, and Lila's broken sobs. The revolver slipped from my fingers. My hands shook so violently I thought they might splinter. Layla crawled to him, pressing her hands against the wound, her tears dripping onto his chest. I'm sorry, she whispered again and again. I'm so sorry. But his eyes glazed, his body stilled. He was gone. I sank onto the bed, my whole body numb, staring at my bloodied hands. The weight of the shot echoed in my bones. She finally turned to me, her face streaked with ashen tears. You saved me. I shook my head slowly. My throat burned. No, I killed him. Her lips quivered, but she didn't argue. Because it was true. The sirens came again. The flashing lights. The questions. The same cycle of statements and reports. But this time, there was no running. No hiding. Layla was taken into custody. For the fire. For the death she could no longer deny. And me? They called it self-defense. They called me a hero. But when I close my eyes at night, all I hear is the gunshot. All I see is the man's face, wide with shock, crumpling to the ground. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like a fool who mistook kindness for salvation. And I'll never make that mistake again. That was the day I stopped recognizing who I was.